Some doors should never be opened.
One, two, three!
Hey everyone, it's Don G. Corleone here, and I am here with episode 11 of my Halloween Horror Movie Review Season 3, and this episode is going to be for the first animated film to be making this list. And the type of animated film it's a stop-motion film from 2009. It's directed by Henry Selick, the director of The Nightmare Before Christmas, and of course, it was the first film from Studio LAIKA Productions. Now it's going to be for 2009's Coraline, released in February 2009 in 3D. Yeah, anyway, so we're getting into details. What's the plot of this? Well, the plot of the movie is, it is based off a book, so both the plot of the movie and book. When Coraline moves to an old house, she feels bored and neglected by her parents. She finds a hidden door with a bricked-up passage. During the night, she crosses the passage and finds a parallel world where everybody has buttons instead of eyes, with caring parents and all her dreams coming true. When the other mother invites Coraline to stay in her world forever, the girl refuses and finds that the alternate reality where she is trapped is only a trick to lure her to her doom. Yeah. So how was this movie made? Well, director Henry Selick met author Neil Gaiman just as Gaiman was finishing the novel, and given that Gaiman was a fan of Selick's Nightmare Before Christmas, he invited him to make a possible film adaptation. As Selick thought a direct adaptation would lead to maybe a 47-minute movie, his screenplay had some expansions, such as the creation of Wybie, who was not present in the original novel, and when looking for a design away from that of most animation, Selick discovered the world of Japanese illustrator Tadahiro Utsumi and invited him to become the concept artist. One of Utsuni's biggest influences was on the color palette, which was muted in reality and more colorful in the other world, similar to The Wizard of Oz. I declared that, at the beginning, I was supposed to be a small project over a few weeks to simply create characters. Or it was supposed to be. However, he ended up working on the project for over a year, eventually designing sets and backgrounds on top of drawing the basic images for the story to be built upon. Coraline was staged in a 140,000 square foot warehouse in Hillsboro, Oregon. The stage was divided into 50 lots, which played host to nearly 150 sets. Among the sets were 3 miniature Victorian mansions, a 42-foot apple orchard, and a model of Ashland, Oregon, including tiny details such as banners for the Oregon Shakespeare Festival. More than 28 animators worked at a time on rehashing or shooting scenes, producing 90 to 100 seconds of finished animation each week. To capture stereoscopy for the 3D release, the animators shot each frame from 2 slightly apart camera positions. And the film was then theatrically released in the United States on February 6, 2009 by Focus Features after it was shot, finished, edited, and marketed after a world premiere at the Portland International Film Festival, and received universal acclaim. The film would gross $16.8 million on its opening weekend, ranking third at the box office, and by the end of its run grossed over $124 million worldwide, making it the third highest grossing stop-motion film of all time, behind 2 Arman features Chicken Run and Wallace and Gromit: The Curse of the Were Rabbit. The film won Annie Awards for Best Music in an Animated Feature Production, Best Character Design in an Animated Feature Production, and Best Production Design in an Animated Feature Production. It received nominations for an Academy Award for Best Animated Feature and a Golden Globe Award for Best Animated Feature. Now as for my reaction. I remember seeing this movie in theaters when I was in middle school, and wow. While this movie was very dark for sure, it's actually among my favorite stop-motion films and favorite animated films of all time. I really love the atmosphere of the movie, and this was kind of a slower kickstart to my introduction in horror, which would fully be complete in 2010 when I watched Sleepy Hollow. The perfect viewing choice for anyone who adores dark, twisted fantasy, or for parents wishing to warp their children's delicate minds. Yeah, the film contains some disturbing imagery guaranteed to upset kiddies of a nervous disposition. Coraline is an absolute tour de force of exquisite storytelling, stunning 3D visuals, breathtaking animation, wonderful music, and brilliant voice work. From a cast including Dakota Fanning, Desperate Housewife Terry Hatcher, and of course, Dawn French and Jennifer Saunders. Now, as for the characters themselves, I'll start this review mentioning the characters. Coraline herself does start off kind of moody like any child, but she still remains likable enough to sympathize with, and her encounter with the supernatural makes her become very brave and worth rooting for. Her real parents may seem rather moody and slobbish, but they're only looking out for what's best for their daughter, and it's not hard to feel sorry for them given how hard they work to support themselves. Also, Coraline's other mother is easily one of the creepiest villains in cinema history. I'll get to that in a bit. As she seems trusting at first, but then becomes one of the freakiest creatures ever conjured up in cinema. Other characters like Whitey, Mr. Popinski, April, and Miriam, and the cat support Coraline to help confront her fears in the alternate world, especially compared to their tiniest alternate forms, and they're memorable enough to leave an impression from their eccentricities alone. Even for a first-time feature by a then brand new studio at the time, the animation is very impressive. It's able to create a unique contrast between the gloomy real world and the alternate world. While the alternate world looks somewhat colorful, bright, and creative at first, its true colors shine with many neutralized and grim backgrounds and colors that really help bring out the dark atmosphere to all new heights. The characters themselves look somewhat grotesque, yet still look appealing. The character animation is very smooth and lively, and the sets look fantastically well crafted. Even effects, which are either done by hand or on computers, stand out from how vibrantly sketchy and twisted they look. While there aren't really that many mainstream animation studios that specialize in stop motion today, the one notable standout besides Armin is LAIKA Inc. The studio would keep pushing the limits of what stop motion is capable of while also telling powerful, gripping stories with dark themes and intriguing characters. So when their first feature film came out in 2009, it was inevitable that it would get an Oscar nomination. Coraline, which is based on the book of the same name by Neil Gaiman, was of course directed by Henry Selick, and when a bang-up job he definitely pulled off. It just isn't often that a movie captures me as fully as this does. Like I've already mentioned, the character story, animation, music, overall design, and little details in the world between characters all come together to create one of the most unique movies in stop-motion history. And and once again, like I've also mentioned, Coraline herself is a wonderful character, and we get to watch this bored girl with a poor attitude develop the strength to accept that while her world's not perfect, it is what she has, and she can love it for that. The film sets up its macabre and charming tone from the opening shots, under fairly creepy music, a hand of needles, emptying his doll and builds a new one before sending it floating out of the near window. And to say more would be to ruin the surprises, but just to say that the film contains excellent messages for those who look for discussion points to share with their children afterward. Dreamworld serves as a perfect metaphor for the cunningly disguised lines of harmful people, as well as their tactics of using self-sold counterfeits to grant people's wishes for the short run, while slowly entangling them in the long run. And furthermore, the film not only reminds parents of the need to give their children attention and affection, but also helps children understand the stress of parenting and the need for gratitude for the parents they do have. And now let's get on to the villain of the movie. Once again, the villain herself, the Beldam, or the other mother, whatever you want to call her. Oh boy. By far, she is one of the scariest villains in animation. The fact she makes this doll that looks like you to basically spy on the unhappy parts of her life and then lure you to her world with just her one hidden door and make a world where there is no misery, and your dreams all come true, only to later put the same exact buttons in your eyes and then eat your soul up later, is very chilling enough. But does this movie have bad qualities? Well, yes. Of the problems that do impede Coraline, one of the most detrimental is the somewhat solemn and depressing mood of the film, which is sure to put off some children, even if not the accompanying adults or parents. Coraline's parents are pretty distant and somewhat cruel to their daughter in the first half of the film, as they bury themselves in work and neglect their desire to simply have a bit of fun in their new home. Even worse is that there's no catharsis to this character flaw at the finale, and it left me somewhat emotionless. There's also the aforementioned issue with the sometimes usually apparent self-referent wackiness, although I won't hold that against Selleck and his personal vision, either. And it does get a little slow in places, but all in all, it's still very enjoyable and a welcome departure from the too sweet impression of the world we frequently see portrayed in a lot of kids' films from this era and this era. As a worldly wise adult, you may particularly appreciate influences that Neil Gaiman appears to have been under while writing the book. And of course, and I also will mention some plot holes. Yes. Like, even in a film as beautiful as this, there are plot holes. Such as, like, why on earth, or how on earth, did YB give Coraline the doll in the first place? Like, why? It just kind of makes no sense. We don't even know how he found it. And why isn't Coraline the least bit scared when she sees the other mother for the first time? Like, seeing a copy of your mom with button eyes wouldn't unsettle you a little bit? Would she really be courageous enough to eat there after having just eaten in the real world? Or then again, she didn't really eat the char because she thought it looked like slime. And how come Coraline's parents can't even remember what happened after they've been released from the snow globe? And then, why doesn't Coraline act like nothing's wrong when the cat suddenly begins talking to her in the tunnel when they're not even near the real world when she goes to rescue her parents? Now, okay, maybe I'm overanalyzing things here, obviously, but many of the film's faults are glaringly on the surface. But, despite the nitpicks in the end, Coraline is still one of the best stop-motion animated films of all time, and will always remain that way. In the end, I highly recommend it to those wanting to get introduced to horror and those who love the work of Henry Selick in stop-motion animated films. Anyway, that's pretty much it for my review of Coraline, and if you're wondering how I'm going to rank Coraline, here's how I'm going to rank this movie.
So overall, if you love Henry Selick in stop motion, I would easily give this movie a watch and then buy it and add it to your collection for sure. And if you're wondering how I'm going to rate Coraline, I'm going to give Coraline a 9 out of 10.
There we go. That wraps up my review for Coraline. And what's going to be the next episode? Well, next episode we are going back into sequel territory. And we're going to the year of 1989. Because we're going to be reviewing another sequel to a film I reviewed around the first few episodes of this season. It was a sequel to a David Cronenberg remake. Yep, that next movie is going to be The Fly 2. And I've heard some not pretty things about this sequel. A lot of people really disliked this movie, so this will be interesting to check out. But anyway, okay. I thought... There. Till then, that'll be it for this episode. Thank y'all for watching. If you like this, want to see more, and don't forget to like, subscribe to Don G. Corleone.